Hi everyone, we're back again for our Friday morning video, all about us or something like that.
Yes, and thanks for all your good notes.
Today we were talking this morning, John and I, about a piece that he wrote with his flowers and about quoting Evelyn Underwood, who, John, you were saying is really hard to understand. I mean, sometimes John will read me a passage from one of her pieces of writing and it's like, what the heck is that about? And then you read it again, and then you read it again, and it's like poetry that you don't understand. All of a sudden it starts to sink in. And even if you can't understand it, for me, if it's not such an intellectual thing that I can say, oh, this is what she's saying, blah, 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 it's felt, right? You kind of get a more of an abstract sense of what's going on, and it works its way into you. And then all of a sudden you understand it. It's like, oh, that's, you understand the way you understand it. I mean, I think, so that's been kind of a fun thing to do. You do that a lot you did that, I think, with Merton, right?
Well, when I read people like that, I sort of eliminate this, like they were all writing it generally about God, and that was when this idea of sort of a spiritual existence had to do with God. Now that's because of people like Merton and all, it's been liberated, so everybody can do it. You don't have to be in a church or a temple to do that. In fact, it's easier, I think, for me when you don't, because you have to look within yourself. We've been talking about, we're both creative, and creativity is a huge part of our lives, and so we're wondering, where does it come from? And I think we both came up with a similar idea that we were creative out of need. When we were younger, we were leading lives that were very difficult, very frightening, and very uncomfortable, and so we would fantasize all the time. I did anyway.
I did too.
I went to bed going, I was a cavalry officer one time, and whatever. I was all the things that I think I feared I wasn't in my dreams or in my fantasies. And I think you did the same thing.
I did do the same thing. I did do the same thing, and I always had. There were people there that I was friends with. I had certain, imaginary friends. They lived in my head. There was a house I would go to. There were, these safe places that I would go to, and I definitely think that that's my imagination. Helped spark my imagination and make me a more imaginative person, and that led to creativity. I always found. I remember when I first really started thinking about art and drawing, and I was probably, 13 or 14, and I've always found that if I drew, which is what I was doing back then, I had paper and pencil, I would feel better. It made me feel better if I wasn't feeling, if emotionally I wasn't feeling well. So I think, that something like that is probably the beginning of it. And I was always drawn to that. So I think it took off from there. But definitely the stories, the imagination, the places to go was a big part of my life.
And I've always been looking to the sort of early Christian and other writers who talked about a more spiritual existence and talk about finding out how you want to be happy in life. And I really got locked into who was his name again? Joseph Campbell, for a while when I was working in television. I started reading him, and I was actually working in a unit that was talking to him. And he says you have to make a choice. At some point in your life, you have to make a choice. Are you going to follow your bliss, or are you not? Or are you going to follow somebody else's bliss? That's when I left television. I said, okay, I'm going to go out and do what I really want to do, which is write books. And that has led to my bliss.
It's interesting because we've never really talked about it, John. But I remember when that series, what was it called? The hero journey,
right?
Or that's not
what he called it, but
yeah, that series, it was on PBS, and I watched that. I had the tapes, I had the VCR tapes, and I would watch them over and over again. And my friends and I would always talk about that idea of following your bliss. So it's interesting that we were in completely different worlds, you and I, at that point, and we were both kind of seeing the same thing or thinking about the same thing.
Well, I think to follow your bliss means to live the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
And it can be anything. I mean, you can follow your bliss and be a car mechanic. if that's what you want to do and that's what you see yourself. It's your choice. I realize every day it's interesting. I have a choice every day of worrying about what Donald Trump is going to do or worrying about what I want to do. And I keep a close eye on that a little bit, not that close anymore. But I also pay more attention to what I want to do. And you, I think, do the same thing. You go into your studio and you make something wonderful.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
And I take pictures of flowers or
Right.
write a piece.
I think that's part of what you were writing about in that piece, the Evelyn Underwood piece. That idea of going in and finding your true essence and your sense of yourself inside, and being okay with yourself inside of yourself, and then whatever is going on around you in the outside world. Not that you go in a cave and hide, and become a spiritual, hermit or anything, but that whatever is going on around you in the world, it will be easier to deal with if you have that sense of self, if you have that center, that grounding inside of yourself, that place where you can go. Because the stuff outside of us, we only have so much control over, right? But if you have a place to go inside of yourself, and then when you have something to do with it in the physical world, I think, like being creative. For us, it's being creative. For you, it's the food pantry. It's the army of good.
The flowers,
it's your flowers. It's the bird pictures. And for me, it's right now it's making these pillows that are really helping people. They're a comfort to people. And so we find through our creativity a way to deal with what's going on around us, and make it helps us, and it also helps other people. But it keeps us connected to the physical world.
And she makes a point of, and I do too, and I think Maria does as well. It's not that you don't want to be aware of what's really happening, but I think the two have to live side by side. A life of feeling or a life of worrying. And I know what's going on in the world, and so does Maria, and we talk about it and we pay some attention. But every day is a choice. And when you're dealing with a person who's a genius at getting attention and manipulating the media, so every day there's something to pay attention to, and I know a lot of people, unfortunately, who spend their day doing that. They go on, Apple was saying that people are going on their iPhone 100 times a day to take a look at mostly the politics. That will make you crazy and make you very unhappy. So I think
it doesn't do any good.
And it doesn't do any good.
It doesn't serve any purpose, but to feed one person's ego, and I guess help the media in ways, right?
Well, for us, having that bliss to turn to is the lifesaver, because when I feel that something bothers me, I'll go out and take a photograph of the animals, or I'll take a picture of the flowers, or I'll write something on my blog, and that's my bliss.
You always do that, even without the politics. If it's something personal that's going on, whatever it is that's going on, you always go to your writing. You always go to your photography.
And you go to your studio.
I go to my studio, and
There's a lot of traffic around here, running back and forth these days, especially. But I think it's about keeping your balance. And one of the things the mystics talk about is you have to have a life of balance. What really is important is your feelings about things, not your kind of intellectual understanding of them. You go with your feelings, and you then also pay attention to the real world. And I think I love that balance. So I realize that mysticism is something for me to explore. And I always turn to the great writers, mostly the religious writers, for that, because they were all writing about believing in God. And now that's not so much what we worry about anymore. We worry about, looking inward, and we become our own God in a way, to calm us and protect us. And that is working for us. And I think it does stem back to the way we were treated. I mean,
Well, we kind of grew up in this kind of chaos, so it's not alien. And lots of people, did. So it's not alien. It's not alien to us. It's actually almost more of a natural state. But in the past, I dealt with it differently than I do now. So I did learn from it. I mean, I think you did too. I used to be much more anxious, and the anxiety would come in when these kinds of things happened. Or
don't you agree? We also let other people dictate our lives.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
When we started going inward, as opposed to just outward, that's when we discovered ourselves and the calmness It's very striking.
Yeah, it comes from going inside. It doesn't come from the outside.
So do you feel
That's
that
in a different place.
that creativity did that for you?
I think it definitely helped do that to me. I mean, I think there's different elements that went into it, but understanding my past and understanding myself and recognizing that and dealing with it, accepting it, and that was a big part of it too. But the creativity has always been there for me. And I always said once I started making my art full time, I just realized, I will always have my art. No matter what goes on, I will always, some way or another, I will have my art, even if I'm like, I don't know, using a stick and drawing in the dirt.
Even some old sheep will be there going,
I'll always have my art, even if I lose everything else.
And your art is defined broadly. I mean, your art is the pillows, your art is the quilt, your art is the animal, working with the animal, walking in the woods.
It can be so many different things.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing is you have to sit down and choose, how do I want to live? What do I want to do? Do I want to be afraid all day? Do I want to be angry all day? When somebody invites us somewhere, the first thing we think about are they going to talk about politics? We don't go. It's like you have to find a balance between understanding what's happening and coming up with a way to feel about life. And I think I go back to the same idea again and again. How do I want to live? Who do I want to be?
I always think, how do I want to spend my time? Right. I have this time. How do I want to spend my time?
And when you're upset, you take a walk in the woods, or you go make something, and I will go take a picture or write something,
it works.
I think it works. I think creativity is really a valuable. That whole idea he had of following your bliss became sort of central in my life, and I think now I've got it, so I just keep it. But keeping it requires a lot of thought and attention and consideration.
Well, and dedication too.
Yeah. It helps to have somebody who is in the same realm and really understands that. Because when I go write something, you're not angry with me,
right?
And vice versa.
Right. When
you get up in the morning and say, I got to get out of bed and I got to go make something, I understand I may miss you, but I understand what's happening and support it. So supporting is good. Oh, look, it's 12 minutes already.
We're blathering.
God, we really can talk, can't we? But this one felt pretty good. I'm glad we did this because it's a very important thing for us, and it's good to try to explain it. So thank you once again. And you have any final words?
I don't think so. I think we've said everything.
I think we said enough.
Say, right?
All right, so by now you've all turned off and going to have some tea. Well, have a good day and a good week.
Bye, everyone.
We'll see you next week, and thank you.
Thanks for showing up.